do it.
Today is the second episode with the very well recommended Amy Griman. And our first episode, what I can tell you, Amy, was one of the most successful episodes and talks what I had on my YouTube channel. So first of all, much appreciated that you give me the opportunity to have once this kind of success. And secondly, that you join me today on a second episode on what I found a very profound and also very important topic. And it's just what I called the feminization of wealth. That's addressed just the daughters, the spouses, maybe the girlfriends, I don't know, who will become lucky enough on the one hand, but also maybe responsible enough to inherit a fortune. What the father, the husband, maybe the boyfriend, I don't know, have generated. And they are now coming into the position to take over the responsibility of this kind of fortune. And what I often recognize, and it is just also the matter that I've invited you and to address this topic is, and it is just only my personal view, there is so many misconceptions when it comes to females and the feminization of wealth, because the majority is only addressing the financial issues. Financial illiteracy, there are also inheritors to talking only about the money, and I would say that is the wrong way. So anyway, that is just my great pleasure. Welcome, Amy, once again. I guess you are in New York today in the morning, right?
No, it's still in Chicago, but I'm heading to
Chicago.
New York
Okay,
tomorrow.
yes.
Okay. Yeah, gorgeous day here. So wonderful way to start the day, and I'm thrilled to be here and talk about this. It's a great topic. I'm excited.
Yeah, let's start. So everybody is talking about these $100 trillion wealth transfer. There are different numbers in the air. It was starting with, I guess, was 84 trillion, then 100 trillion, then now 124 trillion. In the end of the day, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
What you can read and what you can hear is often that there is a large proportion, I guess, between 50% and 65% around this, and also different studies, will be flow in the hands of women. And that could be a great challenge for them. And I want to pick up your holistic view, also from your prior experience, if you work with women and on the wealth management side. What is your feelings? What is your impressions when it comes to this kind of numbers? What have you seen in the past? And if you allow to pick up also to make a projection, what is actually waiting around the corner for us as a society, but also for the most proportion of wonderful, powerful women?
Yeah, the numbers are all over the place. I mean, but I think what's important when we think about this and we try to frame up what it really means, right, and take it from this giant thing that's happening in the world and all these giant numbers. I mean, first of all, in the US, that transition of wealth is a lot of it's gonna happen by 2030, which is 4 years away, right? That's not
right.
That. So it's happening, and it's going to accelerate very, very quickly. It's a pretty compressed time frame for such a big shift. And there has been a lot of responsiveness to that in various firms. As you said, a lot of it is planning and it's the financial aspect. But we still, and I'm speaking probably more of the US at this moment, Jan, we still see more men as financial advisors than women, although there's a growing percentage and impact there. So, just to set the table, it's my observation, and certainly having been in large wealth management firms and knowing a lot of people and colleagues in that space, there is a response. There is an effort to be ready for this shift. It is primarily, I think, the financial and the planning concepts of it, some of the behavioral, some of the cultural, and certainly in the family office space, the dynamics that are going to be heightened and changed through that less so. There's less attention being paid on those last few items. So the numbers are big, and I don't have this data in front of me, but as I've read and studied, women tend to outperform if they're hedge fund managers over males, and there aren't many, but when they are, their performance is better over time.
Yeah.
And women tend to do very well when they are making their own investment decisions or investment decisions for clients if they have discretion. So it'll be very interesting. And so as you say, what's next, looking around the corner, with that landscape in front of us. I think I think firms will continue their iterations and their approach to this. And there are some firms that are out in front of it. Ellevest, founded by Sally Krawcheck, is absolutely doing the right thing. They are focused on women, and they're doing a much more holistic approach in understanding the entire ecosystem. All of that there will be others that try to do that and or will do that. I think the real issue, particularly when we're talking about significant wealth that can be generational, right? And it can transition over time. That I think might be a bigger shift and a bigger change, but it's usually in a smaller population, and it's usually not talked about as much. So I'm glad that we're going to have a chance to talk about that. So what I see in that projection looking around the corner is the way decisions are made are going to be different when women are in control or managing the money. If they're family leaders, I think the focus on family stewardship over just performance and structure. Not that those things are important, but it's going to be a different evaluation system. I think coordination and expertise flow, collaboration and creating a think tank as opposed to having silos of expertise that is coordinated at a different level. So I think the way firms work, the way advisors work together, having third-party or outside advisors coming in to be part of the family advisory ecosystem is going to be different. And we've always talked a lot about succession, who's next? And I think it's really going to be more about continuity and readiness, more of a flow concept than these distinct timeline marks.
Yeah.
When I say all of that, I think what that means is structure for advisors have to be different. And for the women who are going to be sitting in these chairs, either inheriting this money or realizing the wealth that they've built over time, they need to really think about how they want all of that to come together for them. And the choosing of their advisors is going to be, I think, a very, very big component of that. So that's a lot, and we'll need to unpack that. But for advisors, it's going to shift, and for the women accepting that wealth or inheriting or realizing it, I think they really have to be aware and intentional, because the system will not adapt as quickly as they need them to.
Yes. So let's take for a while, put the advisors aside, right? And let's focus on the females, on a woman. And if I can, and if you allow me to put you just beside me, and we are sitting both on a cloud in the sky, and and we make a bird view. And what I want to offer you is just that we will see a new structure of families. On the one hand, if there is just a couple, these traditional structure of family, what we will see. And from one day to another is that the woman will be the major fortune holder. and the husband or the man or the boyfriend, it doesn't really matter, is also successful, but not so successful as the woman. On the one hand, if we put this example just also in the focus, on the flip side of this is just if we make or if we see also a new structure of families. I mean, this is in some cases common that also a woman can be in a relationship with a woman, and it could be just, I can say it just as a man, it could be a completely different dynamic to a traditional relationship.
Mhm.
And if I ask you, what kind of challenges do you see for both of these examples?
Mm. Yeah, I think non-traditional couples is the term I'll use. So, as you say, same-sex couples, couples who decide not to get married, and then couples that have what is really a more becoming more common, but is a different financial and sort of role structure, right? When
Yes.
it comes to money and finances and wealth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's probably, many other permutations truly in that space. And so the challenges are, um, how a lot of, especially in the United States, a lot of the estate planning laws and conventions, were built off a traditional male female, and
Yeah.
often male being
Yeah.
the breadwinner,
Yes.
female
Yeah.
not and or being less savvy, depending on the situation. And so that adaptation has been happening, right? There's been a lot of work and change. But I think the challenge there is that you're going to have a lot of technical skill. And I think it's easy for the industry and advisors to start with that technical skill. So the way you're going to draft documents and own assets and protect each other when you don't have a traditional marital arrangement. Those things are happening. They've been happening for a while, certainly in the United States, and they exist. What I don't think has happened is the evolution of what you're talking about, which is the dynamics, the governance that goes around that. And if we're talking about significant wealth, right?
Right. Right.
Tens and hundreds of millions of dollars over time and generation. So if there are children, if there are no children, if there are going to be nieces and nephews, if it's friends, I have several very good friends in same-sex relationships. Some of them have children, many of them do not, and so they are taking care of nieces and nephews, or they have friends and they're taking care of their friends' children. They
Yeah.
they become the aunts and uncles to those individuals without a family relationship. And um, that all requires a little bit different effort to ensure that that family structure is not only defined, but I think respected and protected in the growth and use of this wealth. And so to get to, maybe what you and I have, as we've been talking, like a power couple, right? Where you have two individuals, um, and they're both successful, maybe have family money, but one, it might be part of a family of significant wealth, what we would consider ultra high net worth, by terminology. What is, how do you deal with that, and how do you handle those dynamics? Well, I think the governance, it's going to depend. It depends on what generation,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
two or you
Yeah.
five or you
Yeah.
so those conversations, though, I think are going to be very different within the relationship. And I think you have to have advisors and a structure that really, like I said, not only honors and recognizes that, but can protect it and move with it. And there's still not a lot of that, at least in my experience and in my observation, and as I talk to colleagues. Um, and that wealth, I think second point, which we could dig into, is as you have wealth move from one generation to another, and there's going to be a lot of that trickling down with the boomers passing away to Gen X and then on to millennials and Gen Z. But the conversations around generation for that, right? And the preparedness. Because what you'll have is, my son is gay. That will be a different conversation, right, than what my parents would have with me and my sister.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah,
so the awareness, I think, of it, the way the traditional functioning and communication. And I do think if we tie women into this, if women are the family wealth leader, there's really going to, they're very much about, I think the continuity and family stewardship concept is going to be much more centered. So I think it will work, but there's going to be a little bit of this with the structures and the systems as we go through
yes,
that.
yes. That is much appreciated. And the question was pops up in my mind if you describe this when it comes to a power couple. I'm completely with you. I would say that is not in today's world, not a normal case, if we call it this way. But my projection will be over the next 2 5 years, there will be a large proportion of power couples, right? And the question, and maybe if you can share your experience a little bit with me and the audience, is if I put you in the situation that you have a power couple in front of you, what will be probably your main advice? And
Mhm.
the main requirement is don't talk about money. Right?
My main advice. Um, when I think about this, and while I've had different conversations come to mind, right? But in your scenario that you've put me in, the advice would be together, what is it that you want to do?
Yeah,
Um, you're an entity, right? And I don't care, same sex, married, not married, kids, no kids, like
yeah,
none
yeah,
of that matters, right?
yeah,
We've got
yeah,
this core, you're a family and
yes,
you are an entity
yeah,
and you can be very, very powerful. What is it that you want to do? And in that conversation, I think it is also very important to recognize each of them as individuals and their own um, generators of wealth and ideas. Again, in a traditional relationship, a lot of that is all woven together because oftentimes a longer marriage. You earn wealth over time, and so a relationship, and that's normal, right? You become much more of a single entity. But I do think in power couples, and I'm speaking also as the breadwinner, and in my previous marriage and my role as the money person, right, in the family. Um, that's part of my identity. That's part of who I am. And so I think those individual identities are important, just like in a larger family construct and in a family office, the different identities and flows of generations and individuals are important to incorporate. It's the same thing at this. And I think with power couples, sometimes they keep their money separate, right? Like spending money, like regular daily spending money. Sometimes, they own things individually, not only for planning purposes, but because those are passion projects or those have connection. So I think in the power couple scenario, that's where you have to start. And you can absolutely do that. And I think there's also this assumption that once you're together in whatever capacity, right? That goes away. And I think with women, again, you've asked me one question about power couple, but given the feminization, if you have a woman who has worked for 20 years and built a business and is incredibly successful and is going to either sell that or is doing very well, that's it's depending on the relationship, that might be completely separate or very protected for her from
Yeah.
the wealth that she shares with a partner. And the same with men, but I think for women that becomes a little bit, what I have seen is a lot of protection. So that conversation is where I would start. And I think that will definitely drive the structure, the governance, the advisor team, and all of the other things that are going to come with that. That's kind of wealth and management 101, right? What do they want
Yes.
to do? What are
Yes.
their goals?
Yes.
But
Yes.
it's a much different conversation than the scenario you gave
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. Yeah. Can we address for a minute the question, where are women actually different as we as men when it comes to wealth? Because it is often the case that there is a traditional quote, yes, women are completely different as we as men. I would say yes.
Venus and Mars and the whole
Yeah.
conversation, right?
But I have an advice in my mind from a very good colleague. The name is 𝐓𝐡𝐚𝐿. He have advised a lot of global families, and he once talked to me and said, Jan, from my experience over 30 years, in specific situations, women not better or worse as we as men when it comes to money. And what is your experience in this? Is it just depend on the situation? I mean, in most cases, I mean, you know as better as me, if you're a woman, you are more focused on the empathetic, on the family, on the emotions, and we as men are more focused on the rational side, right? And both can work together very properly. But coming back to the question, I mean, I would say that it's also important if you inherit a fortune, also in regards how do you use it, or how do you generate potential conflicts, maybe with your husband or with your boyfriend or with your family as well. Do you share this kind of advice, what I get a couple of months ago? Or do you say maybe, but there are main differential factors?
So we're talking in broad generalities. I mean, there are certainly women who are incredibly analytical or quantitative, and that is, and there are men who are much more nurturing and I always think of qualitative, quantitative, sort of this mix. Um, some of it is experience. If you are a business woman and you have spent your career interfacing in a business community, you've been in sales, you've run a team, you've managed a P&L, you've made big financial decisions within an organization. Those are those color your ability, right, to engage. If you have been in a creative, if you have been a teacher or a nurse, um, even a medical professional, right? A doctor, a research scientist, where you've had maybe less exposure to that, right? You've been very focused. And I'm thinking of my friend group here because I've got
Yes,
sort of
yes,
all of
yeah,
this,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
You get more comfortable. That doesn't mean you're not savvy, right? If you've had experience in business, you're more comfortable. It doesn't necessarily mean you're more savvy. I have a very good friend, and she's really not worked outside the home since her kids were small, and yet she is tough as nails. Like you can't get anything past her. And if she actually does manage of the family money, and she's really really tough. So I think there's a lot in there. So I think it is more what's your experience been and how that translates and what are your roles? Because I know many women who are incredibly brilliant business people, but they do defer to
Yeah,
their husband in this
yeah,
case, because that is the nature of their relationship. So I want to say that because I think there's a lot of stuff, right, that comes into this conversation. But what I do say is that I think if you are a female and you've been in business and been successful and you're my age or maybe 10 years younger, and I'm not going to tell everyone how old I am, but I've been in the business for a while. you know there's been some scrappiness, there's been some challenges. It's going to be different going forward. So what I mean by that is we're often very fiercely protective of
yeah,
what we've created. We can be um, really proud of ourselves and incredibly hard on ourselves. And so those are the dynamics that you're going to see. But the creation of that wealth, the use of that wealth, and then the stewarding of that wealth, depending on that woman's experience and how she came into that money, my observation is there is a different approach to that than men. And I think one of it is just women have a longer term, more
yeah,
inclusive
yeah,
idea
yeah,
of taking care of the people they love. So their family, whatever that looks like.
yeah.
And I don't think you have to have children to sort of have that orientation. It's just, it has been my experience. And I'll give an example. I remember this was many, many, many years ago, but when I was practicing law and working with a husband and wife and drafting documents, and I still remember this because it was really impactful to me as a younger professional and as a young attorney. You know, they had a house, a lake house rather, excuse me, and it was beautiful. It was a gorgeous property. And he was very perfunctory about it. He goes, you know what? Yeah, it's a great place to go on the weekends. We love to have people over, the kids have fun, but it's just a lake house. And if we can get, X dollars for it, I think we put it here and we do this. And, we were talking about ownership. She had a very different concept of that. Hers was, this is a family place. We have memories
Yeah,
here. This is part
yeah,
of our family fabric. She understood the numbers and the math and the impact, but her decision-making process, sort of the filters that she went through. And I just remember that because they were really fun. They were some of my favorite clients, but they were so, so different. And yet at the same time, their balance and their relationship, you really got the best of both of those thinking and decision making patterns. So for women, I, I think I think they are going to change the pace of the way things are done in decision making and communication and preparation for the different things within family wealth. I think the pace is going to be different. Um, and I think there's going to be a broader, more expansive way of thinking about those decisions and the impact. Um, I do think that is beneficial. I think
yeah.
that can impact the industry positively. I think it is challenging for people who are only about performance numbers or tax alpha. Again, important, but if that is the only thing, it's not going to be as beneficial going forward. And I think that's where women are going to bring something new and different. I don't even want to say better, but it might be more beneficial to families, especially families of wealth, with that approach and that filter set.
That is much appreciated, and it indicates what you described very clearly and on point is that I would say we need a new discussion on governance,
Mhm. Mhm.
because the governance from the past, you and I, we agree on, was mainly focused on us, the man, the husband, the hero, the Superman, whatever,
Yeah.
and the spouse and the girlfriend or whatever was to supporting us. That is changing rapidly. And if you
Mhm.
want to walk, and you have described this very beautifully, if you want to be successful as a couple, you need a governance between he and she, right? Otherwise, I mean, that is the smallest cell of the family. Otherwise, you will fail in the end of the day. If you are unable to make strong, clear decision, I mean, it doesn't make sense that you have on the other end a large fortune, significant fortune, right?
Yeah, right.
And it is what I call often, it is just a request of an adaptive governance, right? And that is also what I often miss when it comes to advising females to addressing clearly this kind of issue. We're not talking about, okay, you should invest in ETFs and this kind of stock or private markets. I mean, that is nonsense. In the end of the day, that is in the end, you can decide whether do you want to invest in private markets or ETF or stuff like that. But what is the thing what you want to achieve? It could be also that you are gender-wise married with a woman. It's the same, right?
100%. Or they're
Right.
not married at all. You're
Yeah,
just
yeah. I mean,
long-term,
it is
you're
also
Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn. That's the same conversation, right? Regardless of the legal construct, right?
right,
Like that,
right.
totally.
And what pops up in my mind is just if we talk about the birth rates, the declining of the birth rates, and you are a couple and you decide together, or the woman will be decide, I won't have kids. I will enjoy my life and maybe later on, but I don't know. But if you want to
Yeah.
continue your family, I mean, it is a very hard and strong discussion. On the flip side of this, if the man will say, okay, yes, I will, maybe I will have 3, 4, 5 kids, and we'll say, no way, right? And that depends just a new quality of how do you make joint decisions,
Yeah.
right? And that is necessary to preserve the family. And if I want to build a bridge, and the question is, if we go over the bridge and on the other side of the river is just a question, what is actually missing on solutions and offerings if we live in this very fast moving forward world of wealth? Primarily, if they're on the other side of the river is sitting a female or woman say, okay, I will see there's coming something. I have no clue what should I do. Yes, I can approach. It is often the proactive approach. Yeah, I went to a lawyer, to a estate planner. In the end of the day, what you described, it is only paperwork, right? Yes, on the one hand, maybe it's necessary, but on the other side, it's okay. Who helps me and guides me on this kind of journey?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a really good conversation because and it is where I spend my time and working with clients. It's an element of I mean, let me start with this.
Yeah.
The technical, let's assume the technical is table stakes, right? You're going to find, and you need to make good choices and use your network to find the right attorneys and CPAs and people to build your investment portfolio. And I think those are incredibly important. You cannot do anything we're talking about without having
Yes. Yes.
good players in that
Yeah.
space.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that's table stakes for what we're talking about, right? That's an expectation that you're going to have a great estate plan and you're going to maximize tax alpha and you're going to have great documents that are adaptable and, will last and stand the test of time. But getting to that takes some guidance and work, right? So you even have to back up, right? So using your analogy, you've crossed the river, but you haven't even started, you don't even know where you're going yet, right? So that conversation, and so people who can have that conversation with the woman, with the new family wealth leader, that's a distinct type of conversation. And you're not going to get into trusts or estate tax discipline questions. That is multiple steps down the
Yeah.
road.
Yeah.
And I saw this a lot. I saw this a lot working in large banks because we would often have clients who had these large liquidity events, or we would have, dad made all the money and dad died suddenly and somewhat unexpectedly. Um, and all of a sudden, there's just this gap of, I call it a readiness gap. You're not
Yeah.
really ready for what's next. And maybe you're never ready, but the structures and the conversation and even the orientation to a next thing.
Yes.
So you get to the side of the river, now it's the next thing, right? What is the next thing? And you're right, people jump to, we'll get some documents drafted, find a trustee, get an investment advisor. But what I'm seeing and where I spend my time in my advisory practice is coordinating all of the stuff, but you kind of need to know what you're coordinating. So I keep going back to you've got to find, um, I think two things. A circle of people that can give advice and feedback and maybe have done it before. And there
Hmm.
aren't a lot of those um, containers where you can have that. And for women, not all women, but I know I do this, and I'm a part of several groups where women learn from each other and they want to have those conversations with people similarly situated, women similarly situated to themselves. That's where they trust, they get ideas, they start to, and it creates a space to have that. So if you can find that and you can find those advisors, that's the start. And finding somebody who is like you and I can maybe curate and help find that. I think that's a big, big gap. And that is how women learn and find connections and make decisions is within not all women, but generally that is how we do it, and it's pretty widespread. So that's the answer. The first answer is you got to find someone that helps you really take what's in your brain and your vision and your heart, right? And the things you want to accomplish and start putting that into a place that you can act upon. And then I think it's curating, Jan. It's
Yes.
curating
Yes.
the right team and a team that is going to help you with this adaptive governance. And I think that's another part of this conversation is, well, what do you mean by adaptive governance? Maybe what is even governance, right? Some of your viewers may be like, well, I don't know what you mean by that. So I
Yeah.
I think that in my mind is how I'm working with clients. And I think because I'm a woman, I think for a lot of women that process works. I don't think you have to be a woman for that process to work, but I do think it is highly aligned based on who I am and what I do. So
I mean, you make a great point. What is actually governance? I mean, yes, there's on a one hand, ask 10 people and you will get 30 answers probably.
that's right.
And there's in the middle, just in resilience against governance, because there's in the word itself government,
Governed. Yeah.
or
Yeah.
govern, and we resist to this. I often use the term to say, on the one hand, how do you make decisions? How do you communicate to each other? And with the output or the result of your stability and continuity, right? And if you're not interested in stability and continuity, okay, then you don't need in governance, right?
And you don't need to worry about it. That's exactly
Yeah,
right.
that's but in the end of the day, I mean, communication is just the anchor of everything around the world. And if you are unable to communicate, I mean, you will fail in every case. And
Well, and
yeah,
I will go even a step further and say
sure,
that, governance, when done well, creates legitimacy because it usually creates good communication. There's
yes,
transparency around
yes,
who's doing what and how decisions. And
yes,
even if somebody doesn't like it, a spouse or, a grandchild or an advisor, there's always somebody who would say, well, I would have done this differently. But when they can see it and there's some understanding of it, and it brings legitimacy. And over time, you really need that for continuity, right? You've got
Yeah,
to have some buy-in into the process as well.
yeah. But in the end of the day, governance won't work in a vacuum,
That's
right?
correct. 100%.
It is
That's
just
right.
just a question. Okay, on the one hand, what holds us together? What is the goal? What is bigger as we are?
Hmm.
Is this
Hmm.
so attractive that I want to be part of this kind of journey? And thirdly, yes, what is my role? And in this role, I've seen, I've heard everything what I ask is important, and I, I can create something, right? Yes, that makes in many cases just even harder, but in the end of it's not rocket science, right? And but anyway, it's when it comes to your question, what is adaptive governance? Adaptive governance is just if you are, I mean, a family is a living system as an organization, and you must to scale up.
That's right.
Otherwise, you will gone, right? But
Yeah.
if you have a very strong governance, it could be that the governance itself is just the main factor that you will be disappear because you can act on your behaviors and on your personality. It is just giving just the governance framework what we set up for us, also the optionality, but also the necessity that we can scale together with the governance itself, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
to make this goal, what we want to achieve, just possible, right?
Yes.
And it is often what I see is missing, and once again, what we have discussed when it comes to more power couples, it is necessary that you as a couple do you have also in adaptive governance because you are evolving, you are not the same tomorrow and in the
That's right.
next week, and it could be, yeah, I have a new idea, let's discuss this, how we can make this happen, right?
Right.
So
That's right.
that is just a living organism, and that is, I would say, also what you bring on the table, this curated peer network. On the one hand, that you are sitting with other like-minded women in the room, have the same ambition, maybe even greater as you are. And yes, learning is one piece of a puzzle, but executing together, that is what I often is missing. Yes, you can hear a lot, you can learn a
Yeah.
lot, but in the end of the day, you sit alone on your kitchen table and say, okay, now what? What should I
Yeah.
do? Right? Yes, you can pick up your phone and say, yeah, can you repeat what was your advice? But in the end of the day, you must do the work,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it is just even better in some cases that you have a guide on your side with the outcome that you can guide yourself on this kind of journey,
Well, well,
right?
I do think that's what you're doing. You're leading yourself first.
Yes.
A power couple is leading themselves first, and then they're going to be leading a larger ecosystem, their
Yeah.
family, whatever that,
Yeah.
whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
And it does require, I like the term adaptive governance because there's a lot of conversation, and I've had some interaction on LinkedIn with others who are very much like, no, I mean, if the governance, I think of it like if you build it like the military, right, where there's a distinct chain of command, and if you go outside that chain of command, there are serious, serious consequences because it's life or death. In that situation, I think rigidity, certainty, and and absolute obedience, if you will, to that
Yeah.
structure is
Yeah.
important. There are people who believe you have a similar approach to governance, right? So it really doesn't matter what this generation thinks because this is how the decision is made. There's an investment committee, and here's how they
Yeah.
filter, and they get this information, and every quarter, this is what we do. That's one approach, but what I have seen over and over and over again in my career and with families of wealth is just what you said. life does what life does, and human beings react to what's happening
Right,
in their lives.
right.
They are not machines. We are not machines, thank God. And we are going to react based on our base fears, our interpretation, our emotions, because we're human beings. And that part of our brain kept us alive for thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah,
It's still there. It just reacts now to an investment conversation
yeah,
as opposed to a saber-toothed tiger. And you can't ignore that. It is literally part of what we do. And so I think the adaptive governance concept is really important. In the way I think about it is these structures need to hold. They need to be tested, and they will be stress tested, and they will need to adapt, as you say, with growth and scale. But they can't be so rigid that they're going to break. So I think of it as having a little bit of flow and movement, and you can bump up against the edges, and the edges are going to give a little, as opposed to a very one. I think that's a very female approach, especially if you have an inclusive family long view. That's just how you're going to think about it.
yes.
Um, and that's how women think about it, especially if there are generational considerations. Um, but there's a lot of work to be done to adapt governance that's already in place, or to certainly build adaptive governance. And I'm not sure a lot of people know how to do that. I think that is the new skill set, and then communicating and being able to see that through existence.
Yeah,
We're all learning how
yeah,
to do that. We're all
yeah.
adapting to
I
that.
mean, yeah, I mean, it's just. I see your point that you can say, okay, that could be moving in a more complicated communication framework. But if you have just, and I call the guy just a personne de confiance, or the new term is the integrated advisor, right? If you have someone who is sitting besides you and he's not interested on the financial stuff, but more focused together with you on that the strategy will be executed. Also, if there are some consequences, and maybe they can negatively to say, I will be there, right? And through this process, yes, you
Yeah.
gain trust, but also you go through an evolution, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
and that everything is aligned with your interest, with your goal, every family member, and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, these personal confiance is neutral, right?
That's right.
But he or she takes care of you, right?
Yes.
And he's not interested to 1% or 10 on the assets or stuff like that,
That's
right?
right.
And it
That's
is just exactly what you described. These new skill set, what we or what these families, also these females are requesting. And often case they don't describe this clearly, but the role is just more okay. In the end of the day, that is just what I experience. There are many families who say, yeah, we don't need more technical advice. We have exceptional advice.
right.
What we
That's right.
need more than ever is who is someone who holds everything together with us and for us. And that is a completely different mindset,
It
completely different skill set, right?
And it is it's what a family, you think a family office will do, right? Like in some ways, the creation of a family office is intended to do that. And they can, right? And you can have a leader, and I think there are many, I know many wonderful leaders of family offices here in the US that that is really what they do. They're
Yeah,
holding it together. They are pulling all the things, the strategy, and they're also taking care of the family wealth leaders, and the next they spend a lot of time doing that. That works. But for many of the power couples we're talking about, and the women who are coming into wealth, they may not have a family office. That isn't what makes sense, right? Based on wealth or assets or any of that.
Yeah.
There still needs to be, though, that function as you've just described it, that pulls it together. And there are some lawyers who do that very well. They play that role and they do it. There are accountants, but I have found over and over again, that at some point, the one person who is kind of doing that, it no longer works. And what I would encourage women coming into significant wealth, or anyone coming into significant wealth, transaction, death, inheritance, that's an inflection point to build and curate something going forward. And that moment is missed very, very often, right? They're just sort of bolt on to what they've done or their current advisors. So I really encourage anyone who's listening, whether it's them or their clients, those are really key moments, to make changes and or shift or expand. And that gets missed a lot. It gets missed a lot if it's not brand new
True.
wealth. And that's where this new integrated advisor, comes into play. Is don't have to do it the way you did it before.
That's
We
true.
can make
Yeah.
changes.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. It's often missed.
So, Amy, a wonderful discussion, wonderful episode, second episode with you. We are coming to the end. And I've prepared something for you, and I would challenge you a little bit. If you
Okay.
remember on our
You
first
did
episode,
this.
I've did this.
Yes.
Today is a little bit different,
Okay.
and I'm very lucky if you take this kind of challenge. And the challenge will be, and I'm very curious to pick a view on this. My observation on this wealth transfer was approximately 1 year ago, that one main result of this wealth transfer will be that we will have, over the next decade, over a very short period of time, between 2,000 and 5,000 new dynasties. Approximately 40% will be female lead. And my challenge for you is, you will be lucky enough, I will press the button and I will wire you today and now 10 billion in US. And
Okay.
that's great, right?
Yeah.
But the issue is, please build the Griman dynasty. And we will matters in 500 years from now. Can you describe me what will be the impact if you are, as a woman, have the opportunity once in your lifetime to build up a dynasty? What is the thing, what do you want to change with this kind of fortune? Maybe, I don't know. Can you pick me up on this journey and can paint a picture for me?
Mm. This is challenging. My mind goes to places where I would love to see
Mhm.
real systemic change, real, and there's more than one, right? There's a
Yeah,
handful
yeah,
of things. So with $10 billion and hundreds of years, right? That's going to be a lot more money.
mhm,
So I think this can be done. And I think of um Mackenzie Bezos and uh, I forgot her name, Steve Jobs' wife, like people
yeah,
who are
yeah,
going out there and really using wealth to change. Because there's really only so much money you can live off of, right? Like at some point, there's more to do. I also think I have a great sense of obligation. So I would certainly want to take care of my family, right? And create a machine. And it would be all the things I said today. It'd be very inclusive. It would be the long goal. And I would really be prioritizing education and self-sufficiency in that. The things I'd want to change, I would want to help girls around the world, girls who can't go to school, girls who don't get feminine products and have to stay at home, uh, girls who are, abused and like I think as a woman who was born into great safety and into a wonderful family, not a wealthy family, but a safe and wonderful place. I'm immensely lucky, and I think that needs to happen. And I would love to see, the gap between the have and the have-nots, particularly in the United States. There's really no middle class. There's a huge gap. And I would love to see really deserving kids be able to go to college without coming out of college with $250,000 of debt. I think there's a big problem here in the United States
Yes,
around
yes.
affordability, elite schools, the wealthy being able to afford things that, um, and I'm not about all democratization. I think there's meritocracy, but those are the places I'd spend my time. But I would do all that in an organization that would run the way that would have all the pieces and parts of the great organizations that I was a part of in the culture. Because I think how you do these things is as important as what you do. And listen, that would take a lot of work, Jan, to create a legacy that would last. But um, I think really taking care of women. And I have three boys, so I don't have daughters, but I know I'm going to have some granddaughters because I've requested them. So, but again, as a woman who's been able to really do anything she's wanted, go to school, have a career, have a family, start a business, all of the things, I would love to see that happen for girls, understanding cultural impact, but there's so much there. And I would love to really see research to get some of these diseases taken care of. So that's a lot. I told you it would be more than one thing.
Yeah,
The
it's
way I
fine.
would think about it is take care of my family, and then let's get really smart people and create something that will evolve over time. And I would say lastly, I wouldn't want anything I say today to be too rigid. So I would be building all of this with the idea of the world will change and we want it to
Absolutely.
change with
Yeah.
it. Um, well, now you've really got me thinking, and I feel like I'm rambling, and so I will wrap that up. There's a lot, and I kind of have my own curated group. I kind of have who I would have in mind to help me do those things if I were so lucky. So.
So what I get on my end from you, Amy, is a lot of energy, right? And that is
Well,
a
it's a
good
lot of
sign.
money,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yes. And I would say welcome to the Dynasty Club, and it is just underscores it is more requested than ever because what you described, there's a lot to do, and just also the legacy put in my definition is what you set in motion today, tomorrow,
Yes,
in the next
that's right.
week,
That's right.
and so wonderful. Many things that I and the audience could be participate on your thoughts. Um, it was my pleasure once again,
Mm.
and I'm very much look forward to change something together with you, Amy. It is absolutely needed and requested. And many thanks for your time. It was very great, and I'm
It was
grateful.
you're more than welcome. Thank you. It was a great way to spend the morning.
Many thanks, Amy.
Thanks.